Sampling and naming colors in Photoshop. So let's get started. I'm going to minimize this and then bring up Photoshop where I already have a still life. And what I want to do is I want to create some shapes and sample some colors and add them to those shapes and then type out the alphanumeric code of that color. And I probably want to do it over here where I have some room to work. And to get started, I want to go into the tool palette and look for shapes. And I can hold down if you don't see custom shapes in the tool palette, you can left click on it and then you get another tier of options here. I want to make sure I'm on custom shape tool, which I am. And then up at the top of the application in the ribbon, I can see that I've got my shapes right here. And I want to use the hand pointing shape. I'm going to click on that and then click off to the side to get rid of that dialog box. And if I just draw by pulling the left click on the mouse and an oblique or at an angle, I can draw out that shape. But I can maintain the proportions if I hold down the shift key, and that looks good about right there. And by default it's going to pick up on my foreground color, which is black, but I'll do a sample of that later. And to I want to repeat the shape, so I can do that by going over into the layers palette. If you don't see the layers palette, I'll just hide it for a second. I can go into the ribbon again, go under the pull down window, and then click on layers, and it pops in over here. Okay, so I want to repeat that shape a couple of times. I'm going to left click and drag it down to that little page pill. I'm going to try that again, into the page pill, and then one more time into the page pill, and I've created 3 duplicate layers. They're all stacked on one on top of the other, but I can get them separated by clicking on the one below, for example, then coming back over here and holding down the shift key again. I can just drag, left click and drag straight down. About right there is probably good. And then for the next layer I can do the same thing, click on that layer, and again they're stacked all on top of that one, so you can't see them. But if I drag straight down, again holding the shift key, left click on the mouse, and then letting that go about right there. And now I want to get some of the sample colors out of here and apply them to those shapes. I can do that. I'm going to do a little bit of organization to my layers here. Whatever is on top is going to be on top as far as what is above the other, as far as what's in the foreground, what's in the background. But to change the name of this is going to help me organize it a little bit too. So I'm going to just double click on where it says shape 1 and call that top. Go to the one in the middle and just call that mid. Then double click on the last one and call it bottom. So I can keep things organized like that as well. And now I can change the color of those shapes by clicking on the little color sample that's associated with that layer by double clicking right there. And I can choose one of the colors in the color picker, but I don't want to do that. I want to come out beyond my color picker dialog box and come in here and go, maybe I want one of those kind of brownish golden tones right there. And I can do that, maybe a mid-level, it's like about right there. You can see what I've got. And so I'm going to hit OK, that's good. And then for the shape in the middle, I want to double click on that little sample. And then this time I'll try to get maybe one of the purple tones right there, which I got. Click OK. And then the last one, we'll click on the bottom layer and do the same thing again. And then maybe get one of the reds out of the apple, or actually maybe one of the blue colors, so I have some more variation there. Then click OK. So now I've got my 3 samples, and now I want to type in the alphanumeric color code of those samples. And I can do that. I want to keep things organized again by just clicking on the top layer and then go over to the type tool. And actually, before I do anything at all, I want to double click on that sample color again and go back into the color picker, and that's the code that I want right there. I'm just going to take the mouse and select it. Then go to the keyboard and hit Control C to copy, and then just close that. And now I can click there and just hit Control V to paste it in. And I can move that around by going to the Move tool and just kind of pulling that out to the right just a little bit. And I can see that it's right there. And since it's going to be the one that's going to be on top, I'm going to call this one top as well. And I can discern it from the other ones because this is a text layer, these are shape layers. They look different, so that's not going to confuse me. And now I want to duplicate this a couple of times. I want to duplicate this text layer by clicking on it, holding the left mouse clicker, and then down to the page pill. Now I've got a copy of that one. I'm going to move that layer so it's right there. Double click on it and hit mid, and then duplicate that one and bring it down below and call that one bottom. And then again, these three layers are stacked one on top of the other, but to get them pulled away from one another, I can click on the mid one, hold down the shift key again to keep my to keep that straight up and down so it's right above one or the other. Otherwise it kind of just does that, but this kind of restrains it from moving left and right if I do that, holding down the shift key. So I'm going to stop it right there, click on the bottom text layer and drag that one down. And now I've got the first color code, but I need to change this one. So I need to go into my purple sample, select that code, close it, go back to my text tool, double click there, and then go Control V to paste that one in. Go back to my pointer, come down to the last kind of blue tint right there and grab that tone, select it, Control C to copy, close it, back to my text tool, double click, and then on the keyboard Control V to paste. And now I've got that done. I've done it pretty quickly too, so it helps to keep things organized. I want to do just one final thing as a visual element to help the just to give some attractiveness to these shapes a little bit. I'm going to click on the top layer shape, and then I'm going to there's a couple of ways of doing this. I can right click and go into blending options, or I can just double click and bring that palette up. And I want to go into stroke, and by default it brings in a red stroke, but I want to click on the word stroke. That way I can see the tools associated with that function and change it to the stroke to white. So I get that and hit OK. And then what's working well with this shape, it's going to vary from shape to shape that you use, or even if you want to do this at all. I want to change the position to inside, then crank this up to around 25. And you can see what it's doing. The stroke is so bold that it's covering the entire image except for that one little square of color right there, which is kind of nice. I might want to drop that down to maybe 20 so it's a little bigger. Then hit OK. And then I can repeat that same layer style to these other layers simply by going into the layer where I just did that, right click, copy layer style, click on the mid one, and then paste layer style, click on the bottom one, right click, and then paste layer style there. So now I have this, and that looks kind of cool. I can get those color codes a little more balanced by clicking on the bottom one, for example, then going to my keyboard and hitting the down arrow just a couple of times. Just kind of like lines it up a little bit better with the finger, so it looks pretty cool. Maybe the one on top needs to go up just a little tiny bit, so I get that. I'll just do it at the same time. And so I'm done with this. I just need to save it as a JPEG by going into File, Save for Web, and then making sure it's set on JPEG. The quality should be right up to 100%. Optimize is okay. I want to hit Save. I'll call this Image 2. Save it on my desktop, and I'll minimize this for a second. I've got my image 2 right there. I'm using Firefox. This probably works in other browsers as well, but if I just take this and drop it over the Firefox icon on the desktop, I can get a quick preview of what I've got. I can see this looks really good, and I'm ready to go ahead and upload it to Blackboard. So that's all for this video.